All right, today I'm talking about Birds of Fire. All right. Amazing, amazing album. Mahavishnu. Man, what a great album. First of all, John Mclaughlin, one of the finest guitarists of all time. For those who don't know, got his start with Miles Davis. Played on, I think, In a Silent Way. I know he played on Bitches Brew. On Bitches Brew, I think anyone who came out of the Miles Davis school, so to speak, they all became band leaders on their own. For instance, Joe Zawinul, who wrote In a Silent Way, for instance, had his own band, Weather Report, had discovered all kinds of other artists, Stanley Clarke. That goes to Chick Corea, who was also on that album. So you had, as far as keyboard players on Bitches Brew, you had Keith Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, and I want to say, can't remember. But the point is that if you came out of the Miles Davis school, you were cool, you were in. So, of course, John Mclaughlin, fantastic. And I'm talking about musical sophistication that is kind of unmatched, at least at that time, in pop culture. Obviously there are fine musicians all over this world, and complication doesn't make better music. There's plenty of fantastic music that's quite simple. But this album, man, I was 8 years old, maybe 9. I guess 1973, I was 9 years old. And this album blew my mind. I mean, I was just stunned. Now, I was fortunate enough to have an uncle who was 10 years older than myself, who got me into this at such a young age. And it really had a profound influence on me. Especially, all the Eastern stuff, with the Beatles. We kind of came away from that whole trip, sort of like, the whole guru, Eastern mysticism, LSD. You had people like Ram Dass, or Timothy Leary, Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass, who wrote a book called Be Here Now. All that stuff was like huge back in 1973. My uncle was literally a commune living hippie. They worked in a vegan health food restaurant, and or vegetarian vegan restaurant, and all shared a house and all that good stuff. It was really interesting. But those were the days, that was the time. But so Mahavishnu, first of all, he apparently was, I think, Sri Chinmoy, potentially his guru. I know that the poetry is by Sri Chinmoy. I don't really know, who the big head honcho was for Mahavishnu. Maha means great, and Vishnu is God in not Buddhism, Hinduism, right? Or Shiva. So we have Mahavishnu is great God, from what I understand. That's a real amateur thing. I'm no expert on it. But anyway, so you have, oh man, Rick Laird, John Mclaughlin on guitar. You have one of the best keyboard players I have ever heard in my entire life, and that is Jan Hammer. And I'm telling you, he is on fire on this album. Whew. Oh, man. And of course you have Jerry Goodman and Billy Cobham. Who could forget, you got that powerhouse going on. You got some serious things. One thing that really hit me as a kid, and still to this day, is the use of the violin. Really very prominent on the Mahavishnu Orchestra stuff, and not quite so much on his solo Mclaughlin or Shakti. There's none in Shakti. No, that's not true at all. There's plenty in Shakti. El Shankar yeah, so violin's pretty important to John McLaughlin and his music, and it just has that texture of. But man, this is like fucking uh, violin from hell, man, or heaven, really. It's like he just tears it up. It's like the most aggressive, and also, it's like a Led Zeppelin or whatever. Some of this heavy and or heavy and light and big and small. They really ride the dynamic range on here. They can be just blistering out and then just come down to. For instance, on that's my little imitation there was on Miles Beyond. I would say that is probably the hippest song that Mahavishnu Orchestra has ever done. That's just my personal favorite. I don't see how you can rock any harder than that or just jam out any harder than that. And shoo, oh my God. And then first of all, this is some heavy listening. If I had not have started when I was a child, I don't know that I would really be able to appreciate this because it's so complex and it's so kind of in your face. And it's dissonant as well. Obviously, jazz has dissonance in it, but this is like a rock. The dissonance is not only between the chords and the notes, etc. The dissonance is between the instrumentation, like for instance the violin, and then how like heavy metal it kind of turns out to be. I mean, they're like in some serious jams. And one of the funny things is I had the Birds of Fire. It was like a Mahavishnu Orchestra complete. I'm a musician, right? So I'm reading this book and it says, and who knows what key the song was in, but it didn't matter. It says solo according to your astrological sign. So I'm a Leo, B flat is my key, right? So I'm supposed to just, even if it's in like whatever, a tritone away, like E, I'm still supposed to solo an F sharp. I mean a B flat, whatever. But pretty wild stuff. But I'm telling you, man, you start off with Birds of Fire. Dun dun doodle dum dun doodle doodle dun dun doodle dun dun doodle dun dun. And that timing, man, it's like it just. I had never heard odd times before. I was not hip to jazz. I hadn't experienced that. So this was like a real eye-opener. And honestly, it did take me a while. It took me quite a while to really... I loved it from the beginning. I liked just the grooviness of it and the just wildness of it. And it reminded me of, the good times, that feeling that I had being at my uncle's house. But yeah, as the years go by, now I can just sing every little note of every solo and that kind of thing. It's so intense. But it's a very powerful record. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I've already talked about Miles Beyond, which I still think is just, it says Miles Davis underneath, which is obviously a tribute to Miles. And Miles Davis had a lot of songs where he would take the name, like he has a song on Bitches Brew, I think, called John Mclaughlin, right? Or it might be, I don't know, how do you say John? Is it Mclaughlin or Mclaughlin? I've heard both. It's spelled like laugh or laugh, right? So I say John Mclaughlin. Someone hit me up in the comments if you know for sure. So anyway, what a good record. I'm not going to go through every track. I'm just going to say, like, for instance, Sapphire Bullets of Pure Love, Thousand Island Park. It's like piano, acoustic guitar, and it's just sometimes it's unison, and it's just so beautiful, man, just so beautiful. I just don't know how to explain it other than it's just intense. And then, of course, One Word starts off side 2, and that's got Billy Cobham, with this. I don't actually remember I'm not going to imitate his drumming, but such a fine album, man. And so yeah, Sanctuary. Open Country Joy, for instance, has got this sort of the title really says it all. That's what it feels like, just like a ride out in the country, and you just feel it's sublime. And you can hear a, quote, spiritual component. I'm not really, I don't know what that means, to be quite honest with you, but it sounds like he's into some deep shit, man. Sounds like he took some heavy mushrooms and saw God and came back and told us what what it was like. I'm telling you, man, Mclaughlin, he is the man as far as I'm concerned. I find that he's visceral. I really like the way that he uses time. I do think there was a certain point where I think he got way too busy, and I think that's sort of, if there is a critique on some of these early records, and especially Shakti, it's just sometimes too many notes. But you know, I have a friend who said, and I think he's right. He says it takes exactly however many notes that he plays to sound like that. So, you know, I get it. So anyway, that's my review of that. I think it's a great album, and I highly recommend it. Honestly, I do. So anyway, peace out.